All right. Welcome to the From the Cheap Seats podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Jimenez. And last night's game of the Wolves and Oklahoma City Thunder, it reminded me a lot of Home Alone, where Kevin McAllister starts setting up traps, outsmarting everybody. And that's what happened to the Timberwolves. The Thunder set up traps for them. They got a lot of steals, and they just flat out turned the ball over. And Minnesota kept walking into these paint cans OKC had set up, and OKC grinned from the top of the stairs like Kevin McAllister. So it all really started in the third quarter, where Minnesota started to come back a little bit, but then OKC pulled away. And we've seen that a lot in games that OKC has played in, against the Nuggets, against a whole bunch of other teams. And the proof of this is the Thunder outscored the Wolves 35-21. The Wolves didn't play too bad, but the Thunder have 5 players in the top 10 for plus minus per game. For those of you who don't know what that is the efficiency rating that the NBA uses that determines a player's impact when they are on the floor and when they leave the floor, how much points they take away. And those players are Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso, I believe. And every possession for Minnesota, I don't know if you noticed, it seemed to get worse and worse going down until 8 minutes left in the fourth when they started to catch up. They made it a 12-point game. As big of a margin that sounds, it's actually pretty close considering it's the Thunder. And, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the now crowned MVP, and his buddy Jalen Williams made it a 16-point lead again. But here's my takeaway from this. The Wolves can shut down the three-point shooting of the Thunder. We saw that. They held the Thunder to 9 of 33 from downtown, which is pretty impressive. OKC's versatility is just too great for the Wolves to handle, as shown, because they just dropped a lot of mid-range shots. Isaiah Hartenstein got away with a lot of hook shots. For those of you San Antonio Spurs fans out there, if you remember Tim Duncan, he would take a lot of those shots, as boring as it would seem. But speaking of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, congrats to him. He won MVP. I called it about halfway through the year. I'm going to take credit for that. He dropped 38 points last night. 13 of them were free throws, though. So that doesn't really help his free throw merchant allegations. But here's something interesting. If he still didn't have free throws, like out of all the NBA, if you take away every free throw everybody has made, like in the regular season, he still would have been the scoring leader by a wide margin. And the Wolves last night, they had more free throw attempts as a team than OKC did. So OKC doesn't completely have the refs on their side. So I don't want to hear anybody give an excuse for the Timberwolves saying OKC's got it rigged for them. It's not. It's really not. And the Thunder also did a good job holding the Wolves' Julius Randle to just 2 of 11 the other night, with only 6 points. That's insane, considering what he did in the first game where he went 5 from 5 from downtown in the first half. That was impressive. And as I predicted, Chet Holmgren was able to take advantage of the mismatches with the Wolves, and he scored 22 points last night. And this is another critique I'm going to have on the Wolves defense. Rudy Gobert, former defensive player of the year, he needs to get physical. He's a lot bigger than Chet Holmgren, and he needs to use that strength of his, or else the Thunder are going to 100% win this. They have to at least stop one of their big 3 stars. They've shown they can slow down SGA, but he gets away with a lot of free throws. Jalen Williams has been shown to be streaky, but when he gets hot, he's almost impossible to stop. This is really it feels like the Wolves, every time they're on the floor, it's like the Thunder, they have 7 other guys out there. It's like Colin Cowherd said. This Thunder team is just so fast and so versatile that it's virtually impossible to stop them or get through them on defense and stop them on offense. Now, I'm not saying the Wolves are completely out of it just yet. Despite holding Anthony Edwards to 46% of his shots last night, he still had 32 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. Give credit where credit's due. He was able to get and dice up that Thunder defense late in the fourth quarter. He had 9 fourth quarter points and was able to make the game close. And he's also shown considerable improvement as a playmaker. Last year against the Mavericks, a lot of the reason that the Wolves lost that series were his late game turnovers. He's avoided that. He's only had 2, and that's very impressive considering the Thunder take the ball away at least 17 times a game. That's by far the best in the NBA. And with that being said, with Anthony Edwards being probably the greatest playmaker left on this Wolves team, I think the Wolves need to take a new approach to their starting lineup. And this is where I'm going to call a tactical timeout here, that segment, where we talk the X's and O's of whatever sport. So what makes the Thunder difficult to deal with on their defense is their length and versatility and switchability.
they have the ability to guard every single one of the Timberwolves players. And that makes life a living heck for a point guard who's trying to get the ball to their top scorer, aka Mike Conley or Dante DiVincenzo. Which is why I think the Wolves should put Anthony Edwards as their primary point guard. If you recall in one of my videos, I talked about the Giannis effect, where Giannis in his downhill slashes to the dunks to layups and all that, starting from the 3-point line where he just goes straight in. I think that's what Anthony Edwards needs to go back to doing. If Anthony Edwards does that, that'll pull in the defense toward him to avoid giving up a posterizer, and it'll open up a lot more 3-point shots. And yes, Anthony Edwards was this league's leading 3-point shooter this year over Steph Curry, but I think he needs to go back to being that explosive interior threat. It opens up so many 3-point opportunities for his teammates, not just himself. And if he does that, when he gets to the fourth quarter, he'll still have the ability to go in and take down whatever the Thunder throw at him, because now they won't expect the shooting, will they? It would be a win-win on that part. And I think the best thing for this Wolves team in terms of changing up their lineup would be to put Anthony Edwards at point guard and then put in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's cousin, coincidentally, at shooting guard. If they do that, Alexander Walker had 17 points last game and was 3 of 4 from 3-point shooting. And he's a lot longer than what Mike Conley has to offer. No offense to Mike Conley, but he's a 37-year-old short point guard. This Thunder team is known to be lengthy and fast, and he needs to be able to. If he can't keep up with that, then I think they should put Alexander Walker in. And then obviously have Jaden McDaniels starting at small forward. He is the best player suited to guard SGA. And then have Julius Randle, another obvious choice for an offensive threat. I know he was cold last game, but we saw what he could do against that Warriors defense led by Defensive Player of the Year candidate Draymond Green. I think he can maybe do the same thing if he gets hot again. And then Gobert at center. But Gobert has to be a lot more physical, and that's hard to do, especially considering how fast this Thunder's lineup is. There was a statistic out there that showed the paces that different teams played at on offense. The Thunder were second in that list. It's conveniently the Pacers, funny enough. And it would also improve their defense because now Anthony Edwards could pick up whoever's at point guard. He could switch on to Shai, and so could Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They're all long enough to. And then you have someone to guard, who is it? Chet Holmgren with Rudy Gobert. And I'm not saying Julius Randle isn't suited, but Chet Holmgren's just way taller than he is. And we've seen, people don't realize this, but Anthony Edwards is actually a really good defender. He should have made an all-defensive team last year, but he didn't. And late game, we kind of saw it too, because he forced a steal, and then stupidly one of his teammates turned the ball over, and then he ran over back to the basket and blocked the shot, all within less than 15 seconds. That type of effort in defensive play is incredible to me. And I think if they go back to doing that, they should be just fine. All right, so let's get back to this cheap seat report. So you're probably hearing all the buzz, especially from New York fans right now, about what went down Wednesday night. And I'm going to say this, that is one of the craziest games I've ever seen in any sport. This Pacers team is also one of the craziest ones I've ever seen. Since 1997, teams trailing by 7 points plus in the final 50 seconds are 4 out of 1,702. This season, the Pacers have 3 of those wins. It's almost as if they're the chosen team. And it's not like the Knicks had a bad game. They made 2 field goals and shot 3 free throws in the last 3 minutes. They still scored the basketball. But it took something unprecedented, a almost miraculous type of shooting to get back in the game, because Indiana shot 70% in those last 4 minutes and did not miss any 3 in those minutes. In fact, Alex Neesmith scored 20 of his 30 points and made 6 3-point shots in those final, 3 minutes? Final 3 minutes. Wow. And he had the Pacers franchise record 8 3-pointers in a playoff game. Incredible stuff. So give the Pacers credit. It was not entirely a New York choke. It was just something that nobody saw coming. And I don't think New York knew how to deal with that. They're going all out. They're giving their max effort even in overtime. The Pacers' max effort just proved to be so clutch that New York couldn't stop it. And when I think of this Pacers team and the type of run they're having, I'm also an NFL fan, so I compare it to the 2021-2022 Bengals, where the Bengals made the Super Bowl. But to do so, they had multiple comeback wins against the number 1 seeded Titans, then against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they barely lost the Super Bowl because Aaron Donald was able to get to Joe Burrow and stop him. With this Pacers team, though, it's a similar story. They've come back and they've defeated a number one seeded Cavaliers team who should have easily beaten them, and they had a chance to. And they defeated, they defeated the Bucks, who are technically their rivals now, but we kind of expected that one because the Bucks were very depleted. This Knicks team, though, I said it last video. This Knicks team is built to win the championship. They built a team to beat Boston. And by all means, Boston, before Jason Tatum got hurt, was my favorite to win the title. I thought they had a chance to beat OKC. But, well, there goes that. The Knicks figured them out. And it's just a testament to the fact that the Knicks, as an organization, no matter how many crappy things happen, especially in the 90s, they are able to persevere. And kudos to the fan base, too. This Pacers team also leads the NBA playoffs in points per game with 119.5. So they aren't a total fraud team. They're just very, I don't want to say inhuman, but insane in the clutch. However, with that being said, I do not think that'll happen again in these playoffs. I think that the Knicks are not going to blow a 14-point lead again within the last 6 minutes. And that's no offense to the Pacers, but the Knicks now have poster board material. If you recall, Tyrese Halliburton did the Reggie Miller choke celebration. That's something that would tick people off. And I think Mikal Bridges is going to go off next game. I've been a big fan of him these playoffs, but I think he'll have an opportunity to show what he's made of. So my prediction for tonight's game, the Knicks versus Pacers, I have the Knicks winning this one 115 to 107. I have Jalen Brunson dropping 25 with 9 assists and Karl Anthony Towns scoring 29 points with 11 rebounds. I'll briefly discuss what's going on in the NFL. Recently, there's been a lot of hate toward the Philadelphia Eagles for their use of the tush push. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's where the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, will line up directly behind the center, and he'll have a bunch of wide receivers and tight ends behind him, and they'll just push him to get the first down if it's like a 2nd and 1, 4th and 1. And they've converted it 89% of the time throughout the past few years. That's insane. That's an almost guaranteed first down. But only the Eagles can really do it that well. But people are still out there saying, I don't know, this play might ruin the NFL. So what? Teams are practicing to go against that play. The Chiefs did a good job of it. The Chiefs were able to go in front of Josh Allen and stop him in the AFC Championship because they were about to get a 2-point conversion to tie the game. But they didn't let Josh Allen do it because they're able to stop him. And I think other teams are going to start doing this. They're going to prepare for that. And that's why I think the NFL made a great decision not deciding to get rid of the tush push. As stupid as it sounds, because it makes the game good. It's every team has to have that signature thing they do, whether it's the Patriots and their staunch defense and their offense being carried by Tom Brady, or the Chiefs and their normally explosive offense being carried by Patrick Mahomes and the wide receivers, or the Legion of Boom back when they had Seattle and those strong defenses. Every team has a trademark, and for the Eagles, it's the brotherly shove. So I'm glad they did not get rid of that. They even called in Jason Kelce to see if this play was actually a threat to the players themselves for using it, that posed any chance of them getting hurt. All right, so now we'll move on to the infamous session. Charlie's Chalkboard. So for Charlie's Chalkboard today, we are going to be doing the top 5 conference finals matchups in the NBA of all time. And so I have at number 5, the Celtics versus Heat, 2011-2012. I call it the King Takes Over. So going into this series, it was the Celtics with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. Albeit they were all aging, they were still near the top of their game. And they were a very gritty team and hard to beat. And then we had the Heatles, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. This is their second conference championship, I believe. And in Game 6, because it got close, it started to get really close. In Game 6, LeBron decided I call this the LeBron Death Stare game. He dropped 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists on 73% shooting. That's remarkable. And definitely one of his best playoff performances ever. All right. In Game 7, we had LeBron go for 31 points and 12 rebounds. Dwayne Wade added 23 points, and Miami survived an aging, gutsy Boston team. In this series, LeBron averaged 33.6 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, on 53% shooting. Incredible stuff. All right, the next one. Speaking of the New York Knicks, on my fourth spot, I have the Bulls versus Knicks from 1993, and I titled this one Jordan versus New York. This series was known for its rather brutal defense against Michael Jordan, almost as bad as the Pistons, where they were shoving him, beating him up. It's something the NBA wouldn't allow today, and that says a lot about where we've headed. Jordan dropped 54 points in Game 4 to tie the series after being down 0-2. And then in Game 6, the Bulls were behind, and they went on a 14-2 run to close out the game and win 96-88 behind Jordan's 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. Incredible stuff. He is the greatest player of all time for a reason. All right, number 3 on the list, I have the Lakers versus Kings, Sacramento. This series was a rather controversial one. We'll start at Game 4. We had Robert Horry's buzzer beater. He hit a three at a buzzer after a wild sequence against the Lakers. And Game 6, this is probably one of the most controversial games I think I've ever heard of. We had the Lakers hitting 27 free throws. They shot 27 free throws in the fourth quarter. That's ridiculous to me. And then after that, we had Game 7, which is the Lakers win overtime. Shaq goes for 35 points and 13 rebounds. Again, insane stuff. All right, second series overall, we have the Warriors versus Thunder, 2015-2016. I called this series Game 6 Clay, and you'll see why. In Game 6, Klay Thompson scores 41 points and hits an NBA playoff record 11 threes to save the Golden State Warriors from elimination after being down 3-1. And then in Game 7, they won 96-88. Curry hits 7 threes and drops 36 points and completes a 3-1 comeback. Insane stuff. First time in conference finals history that's happened. And then the series I picked for first overall was for the top 5 conference finals matchups as teams all time was the Celtics versus Pistons 1987. And I titled this one The Birth of the Bad Boys. For those of you who don't know, the Bad Boy Pistons were notorious throughout the late 80s, winning 2 titles. And to do so, they had to go through the Showtime Lakers, the Boston Celtics, and the Michael Jordan Bulls. Albeit the Bulls weren't at full power yet and did not have future Hall of Fame head coach Phil Jackson on their side. In this series, though, Larry Bird, probably one of the greatest offensive players we've ever seen, he had to give it his all against this defense. In Game 5, this is known for its notorious steal where Isaiah Thomas on his inbounds pass tried to steal the game 107-106. He gets stolen by Larry Bird, and Bird dishes it to Dennis Johnson for a layup to seal the win 108-107. In Game 7, Boston survives after Larry Bird drops 37 points, and the Celtics fend off a surging Pistons squad at home, 117-114. Now, back then, that was a very high score, because scores back then were typically like 95 to 80, something like that. But that type of score is insane. And it shows you just how far we've come in terms of three-point shooting and overall offense in today's NBA.